So, what is your present understanding and experience of emotions? Do you feel you were taught more about math and physics, or more about the maps of the world rather than what's going on inside? Maybe you feel like you're overwhelmed. There's so much going on. Yes, emotions are a gift, but what if they're too big? What's the purpose of emotions anyway? Well, emotions are messages. They give information. An event or an object triggers an impulse, and we call this impulse an emotion. And emotions have a short life, 6 to 90 seconds, because after the impulse and the immediate response in our body, our unconscious worldview shapes that initial emotion into what we call a feeling. So, for example, if you're walking through a forest and you hear a rustle in the leaves, you're, you're going to have an impulse. You're going to have an alert. Something's going on. There'll be a leap inside of you. Now, if you are terrified of snakes, that's going to quickly turn into the feeling of fear and run and panic. If, however, you love snakes and you can't wait to handle and study and explore their environment, that impulse is going to turn into intrigue, interest, excitement. So it's really important that we slow down when those seconds between interpreting the impulse and our feeling can really make a difference. But we need some tools. Is there a tool that could help us understand our emotions? Well, I asked God many times, especially in my adolescence, can you help me with emotions? And I felt He showed me this. There was a cost going to come as I learned about my emotions, but there's also a benefit. And so over the years, I felt He's given me a 4-step process. I call that gift. God first, identify the emotion, follow the trail, and take an action. So we need God. When we try to understand our inner life on our own, we either get fixated on our faults or we miss our blind spots. Sometimes we think we need to figure out our emotion first and then go to God. Sometimes I have a hard enough time connecting with God at the best of times. And sometimes we think God's disappointed in our emotions. Search me, O God. King David knew that he could ask God to know his heart and tell him. In Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he'll show you what path to take. One pastor said, I've always felt like a failure when it came to my emotions. For some reason, I never put it together that we'd process our emotions with God. This is life changing. So that's the first step. The second is to identify the emotion. Now, this can be pretty tricky because taking time to stop and name the emotion makes us aware, gives us more time, but we don't have the experience, we don't have training, and we don't have a vocabulary. So there's a difference between the types of scared. One needs information and one needs a hug. So we need to be able to have some knowledge and have a help. So there are some wonderful psychologists and research people that have made what's called feeling wheels. And feeling wheels can be used any way you want. You can look on the outside rim and find a word that identifies, or you can go into the middle and work out. Either way, you just find a word that resonates with something in your heart, and then you follow it in and out of the circle. And you might have more than one feeling, but that's take one at a time, and we just need to practice. So F stands for follow the trail. Now, there's no right or wrong way to follow a trail and get clues. We just need to keep going, but we want to gather clues. So first we say, well, what's happening in my body? My shoulders tight, shallow breathing, butterflies. What does that tell me? And what preceded the emotion? That's another helpful way to get clues. And what are my thoughts around the emotion? You see, it all leads up to the last letter T. And in my next video, I'll take you through an example, but I want to give you the overview. Emotions need an outlet. When we take the time to go to God, connect, identify the emotion, follow the trail, and gather all the clues, we have more information, and now we're better equipped to choose an action. The goal is not to force your emotions to change. And it can be helpful to plan ahead. So again, in our next video, we will look at some ways to prepare and follow that trail, go to God, identify the feeling, follow the trail, and take an action. Thanks for joining me.